Dementia Researcher Conversations, AI-generated podcasts. Checked for accuracy, drawn on content that comes straight from the pages of the Dementia Researcher website.
Imagine dedicating your entire life to solving one of the world's most devastating medical mysteries.
Right.
You know, you are actively trying to cure Alzheimer's disease or, another form of dementia. And your typical Tuesday involves these brutal 12-hour shifts.
Oh, easily 12 hours, yeah.
Staring down incredibly complex biological puzzles under a microscope, basically trying to understand how proteins misfold in the human brain. But, and here's the crazy part, your biggest daily stress, the thing that is actually keeping you awake at night, it isn't the science.
No, not at all.
It's not the massive data sets you have to analyze. It is whether or not you will even be able to pay your rent next year.
Yeah, it's just a staggering disconnect.
Right. Welcome to the conversation, everyone. We're so glad you're here with us today as we take a really hard look at the harsh reality of scientific discovery.
Because there is this massive expectation we place on these researchers, right? But the completely fragile reality of their daily lives is, well, it's shocking.
It really is.
We're leaning on these brilliant minds to solve a global health crisis, and yet the ecosystem they operate within is functionally designed to, break them down.
Break them down entirely. And that structural failure is exactly the mission of our deep dive today. We're going to look behind the laboratory doors and really try to understand the real human challenges facing the people trying to cure dementia.
So important.
So our grounding material for this is a really highly detailed 2022 survey report. It's titled Listening to Early Career Researchers.
It's a great report. Produced by University College London, right?
Yep, University College London and the ISTAART PEERs network. They actually went out and captured the voices of over 500 early career researchers.
Often called ECRs in the field.
Exactly, ECRs. And this spans 42 different countries. So it's a huge global snapshot.
It is. And to truly grasp the trajectory of scientific advancement, we really have to look closely at the humans who are conducting the experiments.
Yeah, the actual people in the lab coats.
Right. This report offers a rather unprecedented look at the foundation of the research workforce. And it answers a very uncomfortable question.
Which is?
Why are a shocking number of our brightest minds currently planning to walk away from dementia research entirely?
Which is just terrifying if you care about finding a cure.
Absolutely terrifying.
But, before we get into the specific struggles driving them away, we really need to establish who these people are.
Who are the ECRs?
Right, and why they even chose such an intense, demanding field in the first place. The report paints a picture of a remarkably diverse and honestly just incredibly passionate group.
Very passionate.
Demographically, 66% of these early career researchers identify as women.
Wow.
Yeah, 2/3. And when you look at what actually drives them into the lab every single day, it is deeply, deeply personal.
Yeah, the motivations really reveal a lot about the mindset required for this kind of grueling work.
Definitely.
So the primary driver, at 20.7%, is personal curiosity.
Which makes sense for a scientist.
Right. It's that fundamental itch to understand how the universe, or, this specific case, the human brain, actually works.
Yeah, just needing to solve the puzzle.
Exactly. And closely following that is a general passion for the research process itself, which came in at 19.5%.
Okay, so the process of science itself is the draw.
Yeah. But perhaps the most compelling demographic, I think, are the 17.5% of researchers who are driven by personal experience with dementia.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
These are individuals who have likely watched, a grandparent or a parent slowly fade away from this disease.
Just heartbreaking.
It is. And they have basically centered their entire professional existence around stopping it from happening to anyone else.
So you have this workforce fueled by literally the most powerful motivators possible, right? Pure curiosity and deep empathy.
Yeah.
But then they slam headfirst into this central conflict of modern academia, which is chronic job insecurity.
It's the huge elephant in the room.
It is. And the report reveals a statistic that, honestly, it made me do a double take when I first read it.
I know exactly which one you're talking about.
48% of these respondents, so literally nearly half the workforce, have 2 years or less remaining on their current employment contract.
It's wild. And if we look at how biological research actually functions, a 2-year timeline is completely out of sync with reality.
How so?
Well, let's say you want to test a new compound, right? Something that might slow down cognitive decline.
Okay.
You first have to design the experiment and secure these really rigorous ethics board approvals. That alone can take months.
Just to get the permission.
Right. Then you have to cultivate a specialized biological model, like a specific lineage of mice.
Oh, right, the lab mice.
Yeah, and you have to wait for those mice to age enough to naturally develop dementia symptoms before you could even begin the actual intervention.
Wow. Wait, how long does that take?
That alone can take a year and a half.
Are you serious?
Yes. And then comes the data collection, the analysis, writing it up, peer review. I mean, a single robust experiment is a 3 to 5 year commitment, minimum.
Okay, let's unpack this. It's like trying to build a massive cathedral, but you're only given enough bricks for a week.
Yes, exactly.
And you have to constantly stop building to reapply for your next batch of bricks.
Which takes up all your time.
Right. How are you ever supposed to finish the roof? You're basically forcing these brilliant architects to spend all their time filling out paperwork for clay.
What's fascinating here is how it completely changes the architecture of what actually gets built.
Oh, I didn't even think about that.
Yeah. If you only have 2 years to prove your worth and secure your next paycheck, you simply cannot afford to take a risk.
Because if it fails, you're unemployed.
Precisely. You aren't going to launch a bold, revolutionary experiment that might fail or that might take 4 years to yield results.
Right.
You are forced to pick the safest, most incremental, most boring project simply to guarantee a quick publication.
Just to stay alive in the system.
Exactly. And the report backs this up perfectly. Over 85% of these researchers explicitly state that short-term funding is a major barrier to actual scientific advancement.
85%.
Yeah, and a staggering 95% agree that funding and job opportunities are their absolute biggest hurdle.
So the very structure of the funding is actively slowing down the cure for dementia.
Without a doubt.
I mean, these brilliant minds are spending their time writing grants, navigating these awful bureaucratic mazes, and refreshing job boards instead of, actually looking through their microscopes.
It's a huge waste of human potential.
And living in that perpetual state of job jeopardy where your boldest ideas are suppressed and your timeline is just literally impossible, it does something to a person.
Oh, it takes a massive toll.
You can only spend so many nights wondering how you'll survive next year before it starts really affecting your mental state.
Yeah.
And this report actually measures that exact psychological breaking point.
Yeah, the environment acts as a total pressure cooker, and the fallout is severe.
Right.
The survey found that 75% of respondents experience imposter syndrome.
3/4 of them.
Yeah, 75%. It's that persistent, gnawing feeling that you are a fraud who doesn't belong, despite all your hard-earned credentials.
Even though they literally have PhDs in neurology.
Exactly. But it gets worse. Beyond that, a full 60% report suffering from actual mental health issues.
Wow.
And within that struggling group, anxiety sits at 64% and depression is at 51%.
That is just incredibly dark. Half of the people trying to save our brains are dealing with clinical depression in their own.
It's tragic.
And to cope with this, the report says they rely heavily on exercise and, leaning on their friends and colleagues.
As they have to.
Right, because the institutional safety net is practically non-existent. Almost a third, 31%, noted that their employer or institution was not helpful at all with their mental health.
Which is just unacceptable.
They are entirely on their own to manage the stress that the institution itself is creating.
And we have to recognize that that psychological burden is not distributed equally.
What do you mean?
Well, when you combine high stress, extreme job scarcity, and a total lack of institutional support, you create an environment where systemic discrimination just goes completely unchecked.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. The statistics here are a stark indictment of the workplace culture in these labs.
The breakdown in the report is honestly difficult to process.
It really is.
Among female, genderqueer, and non-binary respondents, 41% experienced sexism.
Nearly half.
Yeah. And for minority respondents, a massive 82% faced racism.
82%. Just let that sink in.
That's almost everyone. And then 64% of LGBTQ plus researchers faced homophobia. There's even prevalent ageism, hitting 24% of all respondents.
Which is so strange in academia.
Right. ECRs being dismissed as either too young to know anything or too old to still be at the early career stage. You can't win.
You really can't.
Yeah.
And these percentages are so high that they cannot be dismissed as just, a few bad actors.
No, definitely not.
They represent a fundamental vulnerability built into the academic system itself.
Okay, wait a minute. I have to push back here.
Okay, go ahead.
We think of scientists as these, like, ultimate rationalists, people who literally run their lives on data, evidence, and objective truth.
Right, in theory.
You run the experiment, the data is the data. So how is it possible that a lab researching the absolute cutting edge of neurology is operating with the workplace culture of a 1950s boys' club?
It's a great point.
Like, how do these subjective biases thrive in a field built entirely on logic?
Well, this raises an important question about the hidden mechanics of academia. We tend to confuse the scientific method, which is highly objective, with the scientific institution.
Okay, what's the difference?
The institution is a rigid, human-run hierarchy. Think of it less like a modern corporate structure with HR departments and checks and balances, and more like a feudal system.
Feudal system.
Hmm.
Like lords and peasants.
Exactly like that. Power, laboratory space, and funding are heavily concentrated in the hands of a few senior figures.
Oh, right.
They are known as principal investigators, or PIs.
So a PI is essentially the lord of the manor.
Precisely. As an early career researcher, your current salary, your visa status, if you are an international scholar, your ability to publish, and crucially, the reference letter you absolutely need to get your next job.
It's all tied to one person.
All of it relies on the absolute approval of that single principal investigator.
Wow.
So if that individual harbors racist, sexist, or homophobic biases, who are you going to report them to? Human resources.
I guess not if they control everything.
Right. Doing so could instantly end your entire career in that highly specialized field. The power imbalance silences the victims, allowing those toxic cultures to just persist despite the supposed logic of the scientific endeavor.
Man, if you are trapped in that kind of hierarchy, where your PI basically holds all the cards and jobs are incredibly scarce, your only way out is to build your own prestige.
You have to become famous in your field, basically.
Right, you have to prove your worth to the wider world. And in academia, there are really only two ways to do that, right?
Publishing and networking.
Exactly, getting your name on published papers and networking at major conferences. But the report reveals that the systems meant to validate these researchers are actually exploiting them.
The phrase publish or perish is not an exaggeration. It is the literal rule of survival.
Right.
Your worth as a scientist is measured almost entirely by your output in prestigious academic journals. Yet 44% of the surveyed researchers feel that publishing is becoming increasingly difficult.
And the bottleneck there is often the peer review system, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Because just for anyone outside the academic bubble, when a scientist finishes an experiment, they write it up, but it doesn't just get automatically printed.
No, definitely not.
It gets sent to other experts in the exact same field to be scrutinized.
To make sure the math is right, the methods are sound, and the conclusions actually make sense.
Right, that's peer review, and it is the absolute bedrock of scientific trust.
But look at who is actually doing that foundational work.
ECRs.
Yes. The survey found that 69% of these early career researchers are acting as peer reviewers. They are serving as the ultimate gatekeepers of scientific truth. Yet a shocking 56% of them received absolutely no formal training on how to properly conduct a peer review.
You're kidding.
No. We are asking the most vulnerable, stressed-out tier of the workforce to safeguard the integrity of global research, completely untrained.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting.
Oh, it gets worse.
So you're expected to referee a professional sport, but nobody ever gave you a rule book, and you're expected to do it for free on your weekends.
Basically, yes.
How does that ensure rigor and trust in science?
It doesn't. And the financial mechanics of this are even more astounding if we connect this to the bigger picture.
Lay it out for me.
So, in most cases, the public taxpayer funds the initial research grant, right?
Yeah.
The early career researcher does all the grueling lab work and writes the paper. They then submit it to a private publishing company.
Okay.
Other researchers, often these exact same overworked ECRs, do the critical peer review completely for free on their own personal time.
Unpaid labor.
Unpaid labor. And finally, the multi-billion-dollar publishing company puts that finalized research behind a massive paywall.
Oh my God.
And they sell it back to the very universities that produced it in the first place.
It is a breathtaking business model for the publisher.
It's incredible for them.
I mean, the researchers are essentially subsidizing a wildly profitable industry with their unpaid evening and weekend labor,
Yep.
all because they are so desperate to build enough prestige to escape that vicious 2-year contract cycle we talked about.
Exactly. They have no choice.
No wonder one of the top suggestions from respondents in the report is simply a plea to be paid for their reviewing time.
Just compensate them for their work.
Mm.
It's a very simple request,
And if they aren't publishing, they have to be networking.
which is a whole other nightmare.
Right. Because in a niche scientific field, a job isn't something you just find on a standard internet job board, right? You don't just go to LinkedIn.
No. Jobs, major grants, and collaborations, those are secured through whispered hallway conversations at major international conferences.
That is where all the funding gatekeepers are in one room.
Mm-hmm.
But just like publishing, the system gatekeeps access. The absolute massive roadblock here is money.
It always comes down to money.
It really does. 83% of the researchers cite travel costs as the primary factor dictating whether they can even attend a conference.
That's huge.
And the survey notes that just registering to walk through the doors of an in-person conference averages over $200
Just for the ticket.
just to get in. Add in international flights, hotels, and food, and it becomes absolutely astronomical for someone on a short-term, low-paying contract.
It creates a perfectly vicious cycle of exclusion
It really does.
because 86% of the respondents explicitly stated they would attend more of these career-making events if cost wasn't a factor.
They want to be there.
They desperately want to be there. But because they lack secure funding, they can't afford the conference.
Right.
Because they aren't at the conference, they don't meet the principal investigator who is looking to hire for a new, well-funded project.
Yep.
Therefore, they remain unfunded, they remain invisible, and the cycle continues.
So let's recap this. You take brilliant, motivated people, you put them on a biological timeline that makes their work literally impossible. You subject them to an unchecked, feudal hierarchy where discrimination completely thrives.
Yep.
You demand their free labor to enrich multi-billion-dollar publishers, and you price them out of the very rooms where they could save their own careers.
When you lay it all out like that, it's pretty grim.
The inevitable result of all of this isn't just burnout.
No, it's much worse.
It is a mass exodus. And that is the most critical, chilling consequence highlighted in this entire report. The brain drain.
This is the moment where the internal administrative flaws of these universities actually translate into a tragic cost for global health.
Yeah, the real-world impact.
The survey reveals that over 50% of these early career researchers are actively considering leaving dementia research altogether.
More than half.
Breaking that down, 32% say maybe, and almost 20% say yes, they're already looking for the exit.
Nearly 20% are literally packing their bags right now.
Yes.
Half of the workforce dedicating their lives to curing dementia is ready to pack it in.
It's devastating.
And the report actually tracked down people who had already left the field to ask them why.
And it wasn't because they didn't care.
Exactly. They didn't lose their passion for the brain. The top reasons were just painfully practical.
What were they?
21% walked away simply because they couldn't find a job, and 16% cited a desperate need for basic life stability. The system just completely squeezed them out.
There is, however, a crucial detail in that data that offers a roadmap out of this crisis.
A silver lining.
A very big one. Of the talented minds who have already abandoned dementia research, 72% stated they would gladly return if the conditions improved.
Wait, 72%?
72%. If the academic system could simply offer permanent positions, flexible part-time options, or just stable long-term funding, the talent would come rushing back.
So what does this all mean? Are we literally bleeding the talent that could be curing Alzheimer's just because we can't offer them a basic permanent job?
That is the harsh reality.
Yeah.
But that 72% figure shows us that the passion hasn't died.
Right.
These individuals didn't burn out on the goal of curing dementia. They burned out on the toxic scaffolding surrounding the goal.
The paperwork, the stress, the instability.
Exactly. The solution isn't to create, resilience workshops to make them care more about the science. They already care.
Right. You don't need a yoga class. You need a salary.
Exactly. The solution is to fix the structural foundation so they can actually do the jobs we are begging them to do.
There is a quote in the report from Professor Gil Livingstone, who's a major leader in the field, and it perfectly distills this whole tragedy.
Oh, I love her insight on this.
She notes that dementia research attracts some of the most brilliant and creative minds in the world. But because of the funding structures and the job uncertainty, they are forced to change their path. She points out that losing these minds makes absolutely no sense for patients, for their families, or even for the wider economy.
It is the absolute definition of counterproductive.
Truly.
Society invests immense resources in their education,
Okay.
training them to the absolute highest possible level of scientific rigor.
Years and years of school.
And then we let that entire investment evaporate
Yeah.
because we refuse to provide a stable 5-year runway for their research to actually take off.
It's madness. So, to bring this whole journey full circle, we've looked deeply at the human beings standing on the front lines against dementia.
The real people doing the work.
We know they are driven by a profound curiosity and very often a deeply personal desire to help people based on their own family tragedies.
Yeah.
But their ability to deliver a cure is being actively sabotaged.
Day in and day out.
They are caught in a relentless cycle of short-term contracts that just don't match the biology of the disease.
Right.
They are suffering a mental health crisis within a feudal academic culture that ignores discrimination. And they are exhausted by a publish or perish system that demands their unpaid labor while gatekeeping their career progression.
It is a systemic crisis.
Yeah.
And it demands an immediate systemic overhaul from the grant funders, the universities, and the government bodies that oversee them.
They have to step up.
We have to transition the research ecosystem from a model that extracts data from cheap, temporary labor to a model that actually supports and sustains human researchers.
Now, you might be listening to all of this and wondering, why should I care about the mechanics of academic funding models or, the profit margins of peer review publishers?
Sounds a bit dry, right?
Yeah, it sounds like inside baseball for university administrators. But here is why the stakes matter directly to you. The eventual cure for dementia, the next major breakthrough in Alzheimer's treatment that could save your own memory, or the memory of someone you deeply love.
It might currently be locked inside the mind of a brilliant young researcher.
Exactly. And right now, today, that researcher might be sitting at their kitchen table drafting a resignation letter.
Preparing to go work in tech or finance.
Right. Just so they can finally pay their monthly bills and stop stressing.
The cost of losing them is something none of us can afford.
We really can't.
We are all the potential beneficiaries of the work they're being prevented from finishing.
So I want to leave you with a final thought to ponder as you go about your day.
Okay.
If we fundamentally changed how we fund and support scientific minds in this world,
Yeah.
if we dismantled the feudal system and started treating these researchers as vital long-term investments rather than, disposable short-term gig workers.
What could we achieve?
Exactly. What other great medical mysteries might we have already solved by now? Let's go back to that researcher we talked about at the very beginning, the one lying awake, stressing over their 2-year contract. Imagine what they could achieve and what cures they could discover if we simply built a system that allowed them to just stress about the science.
Dementia Researcher Conversations, AI-generated podcasts. Checked for accuracy, drawn on content that comes straight from the pages of the Dementia Researcher website.